Okay. So good evening for all of you who may be watching this conversation right now. My name's Amy Summerfield. I'm the CEO of Kyria Network. And we're really glad if you're tuning in to this leadership focus this evening. This leadership focus has a focus on leading with a disability. And we've got a wonderful panel of experts and contributors who are going to be part of our conversation this evening. If this is the first time you're watching and we're just waiting for a few more of you to join us, please know that you are very welcome, but also know how we plan to do this evening. Usually we do a 30-minute chat where we chat to some of our experts and our contributors in this field. And then there's an invitation for any of you to join a Zoom for 15 minutes. And that Zoom gives you an opportunity to do a bit more of a Q&A with some of our contributors and maybe come up with a question and maybe come up with more of some advice or some concerns that you might have. But really delighted to be here today. Co-hosting with me is Lisa Leonce, and she'll introduce herself in just a moment as we kick off this evening. And she'll also share with you why we are putting on this special leadership focus. But we also have Maria here with us. Give us a wave, Maria.
Hello.
We are so thankful for you to be with us today. We know that you're an award-winning speaker and an author, and we also know that you were in the UK top 10 disability influencers of 2019. So we're so glad to have you. We're so glad to have your wisdom. And we've also got Lenore here. Hi, Lenore. Thank you so much for being with us. We know that you are the founder of True Measure and a business psychologist as well. And you come with a wealth of wisdom and a wealth of experience in this area of leading with a disability. And we're really excited to say that we have some pre-recorded content from our good friend, Kay Morgan-Greer as well. He's going to be answering some of our questions on this vitally important subject as well. And Kay is the co-founder of the Additional Leads Alliance, which we're going to pop up a link. And we're also going to pop up some links of all of our other contributors, businesses and organisations, so you can follow them. So we're sad that Kay can't be with us this evening, but many of you will potentially know that she heads up disability and inclusion at the large Christian event called Spring Harvest. So she's busy doing that right now, but we are delighted that she's been able to share some content with us this evening. So before we come to you, Maria, and before we come to you, Lenore, Lisa, it would be great if you could just share with those of us that are watching or those that will be watching this a little bit later, why did we decide as Kyria to put on this evening?
Hello, I'm the Diversity and Inclusion Director here at Kyria, and holding this event is a core part of Kyria's mission. Kyria is committed to advocating for women in all spheres of influence, and the aim is that safety, equality, and equal opportunity for all women becomes the norm. And we'll continue to advocate and provide advice in these areas until it is the norm and no longer needed. Because each person is unique and created by God, and we all have different and varied talents. And God intended us to use those talents, to cultivate them and to celebrate them, not to limit or restrict them. And that's why we're putting on this event, to continue to raise awareness and to encourage those with disabilities in leadership and those that wanting to enter into leadership with a disability. And to continue challenging our leaders in the way we think regarding people with a disability. So let's go over to Lenore. Lenore, you support people with autism, ADHD, dyslexia, neurological and a history of mental health conditions in studies, enterprise and employment. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the things that they face and that they struggle with in regards to career progression?
Thank you so much, Lisa. I'm delighted to be here and I'm in great company, so I'm very excited for the next half hour at least. Some of the issues, one in 10 people in the world of working age have a hidden disability. Key problems that they face are things like, do I tell my boss? Do I tell people I have a disability? Or do I cover it up? Especially women who are very good at covering it up. So disclosure, stigma, getting a diagnosis if you have a neurodiversity is always a challenge. And some people acquire a disability. So today, Today I'm as I am, tomorrow I might be different. Uncertainty, anxiety, comorbidities when you have one or more condition. The people that I work with live with a series of problems, and I'm just going to outline the four top ones. When you're neurodiverse, sometimes your memory is affected, your concentration is affected, your organizational skills are affected, and your time management skills. All key functions in the workplace are affected.
Wow, I mean, that's all so insightful to already hear about how many things are affected. And we've just been chatting as we were preparing for this evening as well, that awareness and education is key to these things, aren't they, Lenora, as we continue to do some learning, but also some unlearning, particularly when it comes to some of those hidden disabilities that you mentioned. I know that Lisa and we share lots in common. Our love of Jesus, obviously, our love of cake, but we also share a hidden disability, don't we, Lisa? Both of us have battled and learned how to navigate dyslexia through our life and through our leadership. Lisa, I wondered if you'd be willing to answer for us, and I know you're going to ask me that back. What would you say are the three key kind of learnings, the key things that have helped you as you've navigated what it looks like through leadership whilst navigating dyslexia?
Well, dyslexia came as a shock to me. I found out in my earlier adult years whilst I was at university. And I already had a lot of things to overcome in regards to progression in leadership roles because I was young. I still look young. I'm female. I am black, I should say. And I didn't come from an affluent background with lots of great contacts. So I saw dyslexia as another challenge, another thing that I wasn't going to let limit me or hold me back. So I think the key thing was understanding and embracing it. And embracing what dyslexia is, what it meant for me, how it impacted me, because it impacts people differently. And once I knew that, I was able to overcome those challenges and find out what support was available to me. And I changed that perceived negative thing into a positive, which is my key second thing, changing perceived negatives into positives.
Wow.
So actually, I plan and I prioritize my time so that I am able to go through the detail and I am able to communicate with people at all levels. And that is my positive because I make sure that that happens and I'm really good and organized that way. But my third thing is actually being persistent and resolved, but also being openly aware. So having your goals and keep taking steps towards those, not to give up if it doesn't work out how you expected it to be, but see that as a learning and continue to take those steps towards your goals. And not only did that help me in my leadership roles, it also helped me to help others.
That's great.
Amy, how about you? How did it affect you?
Yeah, well, like you, Lisa, I was a bit late to the party. I always struggled all the way through school, through my primary school and through my secondary school. But it wasn't until I was 21 that I was officially diagnosed of having visual dyslexia. And it was like a kind of light bulb moment for my family, for my friends, for myself, and for actually my school teachers. And for me, I think one of the things that I've learned to do is embrace creativity. I actually love the fact that I'm dyslexic because it really allows me to think outside of the box and actually to be able to come up with innovative and different ways of doing life and learning. And once I realized that this wasn't something that harnessed me or limited me, there then became this embracing of my disability, and then everything that flowed from that. And we know that so many entrepreneurs, we know that so many leaders actually through our world are people that are dyslexic, are people that have hidden disabilities. And as they learn to embrace the creativity that comes with that, then actually comes a wave of confidence with that. And to that, my second point would then be to be yourself. I think comparison is something that we all battle with as leaders, isn't it? Regardless of what our abilities are or not. But as I was kind of navigating what dyslexia looked like for me, I remember thinking in the early days, how do I be myself, and then battle with feeling I've got to preach like that person, or I've got to talk like that person, or I've got to type and write like that person. And quite simply, I can't. There are limits, but there are also awesome things that I can do that other people can't do. That's the beauty of us being part of this body of Christ, isn't it? So embracing creativity, being yourself. And then finally, one of the things I think I've learned as I've navigated dyslexia is to clarify my needs. And I found that as I've been through various different leadership positions, clarifying that I have this difficulty and therefore clarifying what my need is just releases me. And it also releases a freedom about how people can communicate, how people can share, how people can understand. And so I guess I'd encourage anybody who's watching or listening back to this, that if you yourself find yourself in that place of having that kind of hidden disability or something like dyslexia, just to recognize that actually clarifying your needs, embracing creativity and being yourself can help.
Now, Maria, you're severely deaf, for those that don't know Maria, and you communicate using lip reading, hearing aids, online captioning, BSL, reading and writing. Can you share with us some of the benefits of inclusion in regards to inclusive leadership?
Okay, I have to actually correct you, because I do not use BSL.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I was brought up in, I'm originally from Italy, but I believe that this phenomena was very common at the time in the late 70s and 80s, where sign language was somewhat seen in a bad light at the time, because it was seen to be more segregating people away. So many deaf people used to have to actually include themselves, but the onus or the effort was all on them, not on society in including them. We had to, make ourselves like everyone else, and the effort was, solely with us. So that had to be said. So and so it was always us growing up as deaf people having to adjust to others and accommodate the fact that there is not very much accessibility. So I actually learned BSL once I moved to London, and I did BSL level 1. However, because of this background, actually, BSL is not very common with people who have hearing loss. It's very common with people who see themselves as culturally deaf, with a capital D, but it is not for people who have just hearing loss, or they've acquired hearing loss, or they come from a background similar to mine. So I've actually learned about, without having the opportunity to practice it, I have forgotten it a bit. So now with my family, I'm taking up lessons and I'm learning it again. But I had to say that because there is these assumptions about BSL that is widespread. But actually, out of 9 million people in the UK have hearing loss, only about 500,000 BSL. So it's a big, discrepancy.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously, like you have highlighted yourselves, the benefits of inclusive leadership are there for everybody to see, because they really avoid the so-called groupthink, and really having the disabled people participate in all sorts of discourse in society, in employment, in entrepreneurship. It's really important, because we are able to contribute a different way of seeing things, life, education, problem solving. So of course, it's really, really important to include everybody, and society has very much to gain from it. Yes, that's what I think.
It's really good. Thank you, Maria. Well, as we mentioned earlier on, we do have Kay who's contributing to our conversation tonight as well, but she couldn't be with us for various other commitments. But we asked her if she'd be willing to ask this following question. We asked her, what are the most common barriers leaders with disabilities face? And how can employees address this? And so we're just going to share screen to show you what her answer was to that question right now. And so here comes Kay.
One of the barriers I see a lot is assumptions, the assumptions people make about disability. It could be the assumption that disabled people will have too much sick time off. Not true. It could just be the assumption that we won't be able to deliver the job well and on time. Also not true. In church and ministry leadership, which is where I work, the issue of assumptions is also alive and well, but it can come with a whole new level of assumptions and usually based on very weird theology. But normally, most of the barriers in this setting come from not really understanding disability, or it can come from fear of disability, or a mindset based on old historical thinking around the subject. Another strange assumption is thinking that disability is a massive tragedy, or that it's a problem that just has to be fixed before you can become a leader. All that instead of seeing us as people with gifts who are able to lead and able to serve. This regularly leads to potential leaders being overlooked purely because they are disabled. All these assumptions tend not to be deliberate, but that can actually make it harder to challenge, just because if it's not deliberate, then the problem won't be seen. Therefore, I often challenge things that happen, pointing out how a specific incident can feel. The issues may be so small in our colleagues' minds and so removed from their experience because they don't know disabled people, aside from ourselves, that they will forget that it's happened and they won't see it as important or even question why we're even raising it. So I find it best to speak out at the point that these things happen, while it's fresh in everyone's mind. And I've also learned over many years that it's good to challenge, but with gentleness, humour, and a good smile.
Brilliant.
That's great.
I love that.
She's great, isn't she?
Yeah. So Leonore, can you please explain what neurodiversity is and what it's like living with neurodiversity, including the psychological impact?
Okay, it's the new kid on the block. Neurodivergency, neurodisability has only been around since the 1960s. It was originated by a young lady called Judy Singer, and it's recognizing that there's nothing wrong if you have dyslexia or autism or ADHD or your mind thinks differently, and it's accepting that it's natural. So the neurodiversity movement is the movement towards recognizing the talents of people who think and behave and communicate differently. So we have neurotypical people, the normish, and then we have neurodivergent people who think and behave or their mind works slightly differently. And I think, and I want, and the world to recognize the talents of those people. So let me give you an example. Microsoft has recognized this. Dell has recognized this. JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, some of EY, Ernst & Young, some of the biggest organizations in the world are recognizing the talents of people who think differently, who are neurodiverse, and they are actively going out to find you, both of you, because you have the talents and the skills that they're actually looking for. There's a reason that Richard Branson is as successful as he is, and Elon Musk is, Simone Biles, the gymnast. They have these different talents. They can hyper focus. They can be awesome in things once it's channeled. What was the other part of your question? Because I just got carried away and excited.
I
Just
loved
talking about
it.
that.
I was like,
That was brilliant.
yeah,
Yeah, it was the psychological impact.
Oh,
But yeah.
psychological impact is significant. Obviously, as a psychologist, we work with people who are feeling the stress and the anxiety and the self-doubt and sometimes the imposter syndrome that they're living with on a daily basis. But also, it's the social stigma of other people who expect, because you're autistic, for you to be fantastic at certain things, great at mathematics, and you're not. Maybe because you're dyslexic and you're actually a very good writer. Well, that doesn't make sense. So are you faking it? So dealing with society and other people is one of the biggest problems. And also, especially for women, we have a whole series of other problems that men don't have. For years, many people thought that women didn't have ADHD. We do. We mask it. We cover it up. And things like our periods and our menstrual cycles affect things like ADHD, but nobody knew about it because they thought it was a male problem. Women are better at talking, but it doesn't mean that we don't have those anxieties and those traits that are common with neurodiverse conditions as well. So women have particular challenges around neurodiversity, different to men, especially ADHD and autism as well, because we are great at covering things up.
wow.
So psychologically, we don't understand it. And exactly as the two of you have illustrated, many people are coming to their diagnosis later in life. Some people are losing or becoming disabled later in life. And all of a sudden, that person that you were has changed. And getting used to that sense of identity is incredibly challenging, which is why we have coaches and people like myself who are out there supporting you to do what you're doing. I've lived that life. I have a disability. It's hidden. Nobody knows. So it's the managing the sense of loss of identity and having to do things differently and working with a society that doesn't think sometimes.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, this is great so far. If you see me looking down, it's because I'm taking notes, because this is just so encouraging, and it's great for us to continue to learn on this subject more. If you're tuning into this live tonight, we want to welcome you. We want to thank you for engaging in this topic about leading with a disability, whether that's you yourself when you're wanting to come and gain some extra encouragement, or whether you're actually wanting to go on the learning journey of actually becoming more of an advocate for women in leadership of all abilities. You're very welcome. Around about 8 o'clock, we're going to go into a Q&A at Zoom. So just have a little look on the chat there and you'll see a Zoom link. Feel free to start coming into the waiting room right now if you've got a particular question for Maria or for Lisa or for Leonor as we continue in this subject. But a question for you both, and Maria, we would love to come to you first if that's okay. I wonder if you could share with us, why do you think it's important for leaders and influencers in all spheres to advocate for disabled people?
Well, I think it's really important to advocate when possible, because we all know someone with a disability, whether it's obvious or not, and I think it's really important that we all feel like we can participate. It's really important because we tap into a vastly untapped resource of people with many skills, creativity, and inner strength, and the ability to problem solve, etc., etc. But also, I think it's really important to have representation of the whole of humanity in all its diversity. And I think it's just right that schools and educations and employment and entrepreneurship are as diverse as humanity is. And so that is really important, because everybody has something to contribute, and we just still try to really see beyond appearances. And especially now with social media, we're so fascinated with the idea of perfection and looking a certain way, being in a certain way. And if we look at the, the next generations that are coming, I speak because I have two daughters who are teenagers, and I can see how they're impacted by society's outlook on perfection and, all these filters that people put on and looking actually different from what they actually are. Women that are being targeted with, the idea that you must look younger, at least 20 years younger than you actually are, and so on and so on. And actually, this is all capitalism. This is all a drive to sell, and use people hang-ups and worries and fears and anxiety to leverage the selling and the commercialism and all of that. And I think we need to put a stop to it and actually really embrace the diversity of all humanity, younger, older, disabled, not disabled, different ethnicities, and so on. It's so important because everybody has something to contribute and everybody can be beautiful in their own way. Everybody is clever in their own way and has a talent. And I feel that we all have a talent or something that we're good at. And I think it's respectful to life to use our talent and to put it to good use and to celebrate it, and so that others can benefit from it. Just to give you an example, my deafness actually has made me very observant of people. I really look at people's body language. I really look at almost have a sixth sense in terms of understanding people's emotion. And I use that in my writing, for example. And sometimes people tell me that, how did you know? How could you guess that I was feeling a certain way? And that's because I'm deaf. And so I go beyond what I can just hear, and I really look at the person. And I think every disabled person has that particular skill or strength that can be something to celebrate and use. So I really think that we really need to embrace each and every one of us for who we are, and be really more accepting of everyone. So I really believe that.
That's great, brilliant. And Leonor, what would your answer to that question be as well, on why we should advocate as leaders?
Okay, I think as leaders, leaders show the way. The fact that people are saying overtly, do you know what, like Maria, I might be deaf in one ear. I might have a long-term health condition. I might have dyslexia, and I live with it and I manage it. But the power in telling people I have it, and look at what I've achieved, and look at what I do, and look at the technology I use, and look at how I live my life, inspires other people to not write themselves off. My absolute passion is when people write themselves off. I can't because I have. No one's going to like me because I have, or I do this. So I think leaders need to disclose, they need to say that they're supporting people who are different or disabled in whatever way. They need to disclose and say that they are. We need ambassadors so they can light the way for other people. We need people to be thinking differently, and we need to get out of the echo chamber of neurotypical people or non-disabled people who all think and say the same. So just talking to different people allows you, like Maria said, to look at people differently, to understand the world differently, to enjoy the world differently, to challenge the world differently. So it makes us better about humanity, understanding that way. And we're normalizing as leaders when we're talking about disability, neurodiversity, hearing impairment, long-term health, whatever, we're normalizing it and we're understanding it and we're learning about it. Because here's the thing, today me, tomorrow you, your child, your grandchild, your next door neighbor, your fantastic IT coder. Could be. And they could come to you and say, I have autism, I have dyslexia. And they may not know till that point. And when you're able to help them and fulfill their potential using things like access to work, understanding, let me just say the other thing, the Equality Act. if you do not take on board what you need to do to support people with a disability, you are at risk of falling foul of the Equality Act. And as Maria and I can tell you, it's expensive when you fall foul of it. Jaguar the other day had a massive case falling foul of the Equality Act. You need to get it right because it's the right thing to do, but also legally, it's incredibly important that you support people and that you're not discriminating against them for many reasons. I could go on, but I think I'll stop there. Get out of the echo chamber.
I love that, what you said about getting out of the echo chamber. Definitely taking notes for that. Yeah, two brilliant answers. Thank you. I just realised I said to you that we're closing at 8 o'clock. Don't worry, ladies, I wasn't going back in time. I meant 8:30, but we actually have a few more questions. So we're going to keep this live going just for that bit longer. Again, if you're watching, feel free to join the Q&A Zoom room in just a moment. But we're going to go back to Kay with a pre-record because we asked her what would be the ideal environment or culture for leaders with disabilities. And here is a quick answer to that brilliant question. So let's have a look at this.
An ideal environment is one that accepts and welcomes disability difference as a matter of course, and not just because we have a duty to accept you. It's a place where disabled people don't feel they have to apologise for being disabled. A good culture is one that is safe and accepting, and where people don't say, why should we provide this accommodation for just one person? An ideal culture is also one that refuses to see disability as just a problem to fix.
That's Kay there from the Additional Needs Alliance. We're going to be popping up a link from her organisations and others, but back to you, Lisa.
Oh, Maria, can you tell us how recruitment and retention for disabled people has changed over the years? What has been done to make it more positive? And I know I'm restricting you on that's quite a large question, but we're limited on time. But can you answer that for us, please?
Actually, I don't think it has changed very much. I don't think it has evolved very much. I think larger companies and the public sector pay a bit more attention to disability inclusion. And but actually, in my experience, I feel that disabled job candidates and entrepreneurs have to do the hard work. They always have to initiate. They always have to say, by the way, I have this accessibility need, etc., etc. And it's always one-sided. I don't think that things have changed that much. In many cases, large organizations try to show that they are inclusive, but whether that's the actual case, I'm not too sure. So it's really important that we keep promoting the talent of disabled people so that a large organization, big employers, really see that it's not just a have to do or must do or legal thing to do. It's really a must do for themselves to tap into that talent. And also they just have to remember that they can access lots of support, access to work scheme, etc., etc. And actually the cost of supporting for the vast majority of disabled people is inexpensive. And actually what you gain is a very, very committed person who, disabled job applicants have a reputation for being incredibly loyal to their employers. And so that's really important. The other thing that is very innovative, and I wish people use them more, is the so-called, it used to be called blind auditioning, but it's actually skills auditioning. And actually is one of the ways in which, for example, I was recruited at High Speed 2. There were people of all sorts of backgrounds that had applied ahead of me, but I was able to get my foot in the door because when I applied, the way that they do the sifting criteria is that they sit in everybody that meet the minimum criteria first. And then they ask people to solve a problem. They give people a little challenge. They give accommodations if they need more time, captioning, anything like that. And people have, they cannot research, they cannot Google the answer. It's something that they can only do if they know how to do. And so that answer is then screened against an ideal answer. And then you do it again. So I found myself, for example, being asked to solve a problem. I gave my answer, and then 2 days later, I was told to solve another problem. And I gave my answer. And I found myself shortlisted. And up until that point, out of hundreds of applicants, only then my line manager saw my CV. So that is a very powerful way of preventing bias coming in, bias as a result of your CV, your name, where you studied, where you're from, etc., etc. So that is very, very powerful, and particularly powerful for disabled people, I think, because it doesn't look at whether you had a traditional education. It doesn't look at whether maybe you've had consistent employment, dates, and everything is matching. It doesn't bother with that, because all it is looking for is the skill. It's actually looking at the skill and the ability to do the job according to the requirements of the job. And so that is a very powerful tool that I feel should be utilized more and more. And I think it's very inclusive. Whenever we have used the high-speed tools, we have always met the diversity target. So, and we are an engineering and construction company, and you can imagine it is not diverse to begin with. So it is an amazing tool, and I really hope that people, use it more. But most importantly, rather than worrying about all of the adjustments that you might have to implement, rather than worry about it, just ask people, what do you need?
Yeah.
How can we help? Yeah. And most often than not, you'll find that actually it doesn't take that much effort, and you don't have to do very much. So I think engaging with the audience and actually asking people, what includes you? How can we help? Is the best question to ask, and you don't have to be an expert.
Oh, Maria, I can't say much. I want to clap, and I want to scream, and I want to cheer. Ask. It's not that hard.
Yes.
COVID has changed so many things. Working from home, hybrid working, assistive technology, it's changed the world for forever. So many people with a disability have a different opportunity today, because it is now possible to work from home. And if you're struggling in an office environment because of social communication, you don't understand social norms, you can work from home. And that's a massive change. What I want to see, let's get rid of CVs. Let's get rid of that chronology of, oh, I left university, I did this. Let's look at different ways. And exactly as Maria has just said, what a wonderful opportunity to demonstrate your skills before they actually see your CV. And that's what we need more of. And that's what people need to be screaming and shouting from the hills.
Great stuff.
Yeah. Well, you both sort of answered the next question, which was the final question, was practical tips to give out to people. So ask, I hear, is the key thing there. Ask people what is needed. But is there any other practical tips or resources you want to give out to people just before we close?
I will definitely give a tip in terms of any disabled person who is listening to this right now. Really go back to the social model of disability and really focus on your abilities and really focus on the adjustments that are needed, rather than internalizing in yourself your needs. Just tilt it completely differently and just think, this is what they have to do to include you. So be very clear and very matter of fact about what is needed. I am deaf, and I will say, if I have a video conversation, If I have a video interview, something like that, I need to be able to see people's faces. I need to be able to lip read. And occasionally you might have to repeat yourself. And rather than internalizing this as something that I cannot do, I just think it is not my problem. The adjustments has to be made by the other side. And it's about empowering yourself to be clear on the fact that the need is separate from you and that the onus is on society to include you. And so that's really important. You have to use it as a motivation and really focus on what you have to offer rather than what you're lacking. And so I will definitely say that.
Thank you.
Do you mind if I add my bit?
Yes.
If you're a company, if you're an employer, if you're a manager, engage with your occupational health team, whether it's internal or external. Ask them to support people who have a disability who you may or may not know, acquired or born with, doesn't matter. Engage with occupational health. Understand that people may have more than one disability because they tend to come hand in hand with something else. So understand dyslexia may come with autism, may come with mental health, may come with stress. Understand that and make those adjustments for it. We don't have to work 9 to 5. We can get the job done in so many different ways. Think differently. How wonderful is it when we think differently in that way? I'm 100% with Maria. For anyone that's listening, for a manager, talk to the person. Don't assume to say you're an autistic person, because some people want to be called an autistic person. Some people want to be called a person with autism. Language is absolutely key, and the only way you're going to know is by asking the person. So talk to and ask them, how can I refer to it, or follow their lead. And note, everyone is different. Every single person, we are all different. Possibly even some of the twins are different as well. So ask, and ask with a genuine, honest and open heart, and be willing to learn.
Really good. Yeah. I'd just add on, we've popped some links into the live chat this evening, and it'd be really great if you've got any to add to that, Leonor or Maria, please do send them to me and I'll add them onto that live chat that stays up on our Kyria page. But the Additional Needs Alliance that Kay works for have got a number of resources and some really brilliant downloads that we can all access. And another organisation that we've just popped up online as well is an organisation called Churches for All that help with churches to really get a greater understanding about ability and a greater understanding about inclusivity. Both of those organisations are worth a good look for sure, and we'll be sure to add some more options as we go along.
I just, one thing I forgot to mention is culture plays a massive part in disability. Many cultures do not accept or understand or support disability. So if you're supporting or employing someone from a different culture, understand they may not have that support at home or from their community. So just bear in mind the differences in cultures. Sorry, I just feel that's one of my most important things to note as well.
Yeah, thank you, Leonor. Yeah, so we're going to draw this live to a close right now. If you've been watching and engaging, you have maybe a question that's a bit more of a personal question, a bit more of a private question, we want to encourage you to jump onto the Zoom link that you see there in the chat on the live, and we'd be happy to answer that question. We're just going to stay on for about 5-10 more minutes. So as I say, this Facebook Live will close. But if you click on the Zoom link, we will let you in. We'll share any questions that you've got, hopefully be able to give any encouragement just for a few more minutes. If that's too much of a stretch and maybe that just feels a little bit out of anyone's comfort zones, then we would really want to encourage ongoing dialogue and questions. Feel free to email us at info@kyrianetwork.com. And I'm sure that Maria, Lisa, Leonor would be willing to answer any of questions, signpost you to any places that maybe offer you some support. But I do want to thank you all for watching and engaging this evening. Lisa, thank you so much for your contributions and your hosting and leadership of this event. And Maria, thank you so much, and Leonor for some incredible answers and some brilliant wisdom. And of course to Kay, our friends that couldn't be with us this evening, but sent some brilliant interactions over our pre-record. So we're going to stop this live right now. As I say, feel free to jump on Zoom or send us an email. Thank you so much for joining us.